So I just wanted to give my thoughts and my take on the Chris Paul trade to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole. And I think they gave up like some draft picks. I know one of the draft picks was in 2023. And I seen a few people they were just kind of shocked at the fact that they were confused at the fact that the Golden State Warriors gave up a 2030 pick. And as a guy mentioned in the comments, he was like, bro, like, why are people making so much noise about the fact that they traded away a pick for players that's still in high school? That makes a ton of sense. But on my end, as far as how I felt about the trade, I think it was a phenomenal trade because I was telling my cousin I thought that was a real high possibility that I thought that Chris Paul would end up with either the Warriors or the Miami Heat. To me, it makes sense from a basketball X and O's and the nuance of the game standpoint. Some people don't view it as that. They just look at Chris Paul and say, oh, he's 38 years old. He's over the hill. He's older. But you have to look at this in so many different ways. I think one of the main reasons as to why the Golden State Warriors traded Jordan Poole was that incident in practice where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in the jaw. That's where that stems from. So, they had so many chemistry issues. Even Draymond Green admitted to it. So to me, that was a clear sign that they're trying to move on from that situation. And Draymond Green admitted his faults. It takes for a man to do that, but he admitted that that was part of the reason why it cost them the championship, because that could have took a lot of that young man's confidence by punching him in the face like that. You got knocked the f out. This to me was a telltale sign that they're about to re-sign Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, because remember, they just gave Jordan Poole the max. They just gave him a big contract. So they freed up a lot of the cap space. You have to remember, Chris Paul is eventually about to come off the books. You bring in Chris Paul, and they're going to re-sign Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. What's going to happen is, from a basketball standpoint, Chris Paul is going to come off the bench. He's a great mid-range scorer. And as someone mentioned, it's almost like 2016 or 2015 with Sean Livingston coming off the bench. Chris Paul is a better orchestrator. He's a better facilitator. He's a great mid-range scorer, just like Sean Livingston. So you have a leader and a vet who's going to play with the second unit. They're more than likely going to reduce his minutes because Steph Curry's going to play a ton of minutes. And then they're going to have a bunch of young guys who's going to play a bunch of minutes. You still got Wiggins, who's a great on-ball defender. So they still have a lot of great pieces. I wouldn't even be surprised if they go out and sign someone like a Kyle Kuzma, or if Kyle Kuzma goes to Phoenix, because, Frank Vogel was his former coach who he won a championship with. So you got Bradley Beal, who can create off the dribble and go get his own shot. It takes a lot of pressure off of Kevin Durant and keeps him from getting injured. So you add someone like a Kyle Kuzma in the mix of that, it's just going to be unbelievable. It's going to be great basketball. But the Golden State Warriors made a tremendous move, in my honest opinion, because it's going to reduce and decrease the chances of Chris Paul getting injured. He could play with that second unit. Chris Paul is a phenomenal defender. That's what he doesn't get a lot of credit for. He's a really great defender, and he raised the competitive nature in all the other players. There's going to be so much competitiveness that's on that team. He's going to be a coach on that floor. So I think it was a big move. The Wizards won in that trade as well, because I think their biggest move was Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is a great bench player. He came up really big for the Memphis Grizzlies. This was a really exciting move. I think that the Warriors gotten better. They just got to add a few more pieces. I think people are forgetting that the offseason just got started. It's not over. So they still got to add more pieces. I think if they go get somebody like a Kyle Kuzma, if they add Kyle Kuzma, that will make up for a Jordan Poole type of player, because Kyle Kuzma could give you a lot of scoring. So I think it was a big move. I think that Steve Kerr, they got 4 coaches, bro. They got 4 leaders on their team. They got Steph Curry, they got Chris Paul, they got Draymond Green, and they got Steve Kerr. 4 phenomenal leaders, bro. And I'm not even worried about Chris Paul and his injuries, because I know that he's not going to be on the floor a lot. It's not going to be much required of him. And this is my opinion. I think that this move that the Warriors just made is going to better their chances of winning an NBA championship. Chris Paul gets such a bad rap because he's so competitive. And a lot of times people mistake it for arrogance, and some people don't know how to take to it because they don't like his approach. But Chris Paul is such a hard-nosed guy. He wants to win at all costs, and that's why Kobe wanted to play with Chris Paul so bad. The way he sees the floor is just unmatched. People who don't play basketball fail to realize that they think that Chris Paul has to be prime Chris Paul. They think that he needs to be Chris Paul who played with the Hornets. He doesn't have to be old Chris Paul anymore. The game has evolved so much. So now he has to adjust. He has to adapt, evolve his game. So now Chris Paul is going to have his minutes reduced, probably play like 25 to 28 minutes per game, or probably 30 minutes at the most. And they're going to be able to maximize his talent. They've already established that championship DNA. So they're just going to need a few other pieces. And Chris Paul is going to come in with his leadership. He's going to get the best out of his players. Chris Paul doesn't have to come there and score 30 and 40 points a night. He doesn't have to score 25 points a game. A 10 and 10, or y'all don't understand the importance of a 13 and 10 game. This is why the art of the game is so lost, because they think it's about stats and scoring points. It's more than that. Chris Paul can average 13 and 10 with 6 rebounds. That's a phenomenal game because he's helped the game in some way. And the defensive side isn't going to show up on the stat sheet all the time. Chris Paul, better known as CP3, Chris Paul is going to by far make Steph Curry's job way easier. Typically, Draymond Green initiates the offense. You know, he's like the heartbeat of the team. He's still going to be that heartbeat. But when you got 4 leaders on one team, you're going to have Chris Paul initiating the offense for the second unit. He's going to get Steph Curry and Klay Thompson a lot of looks coming off a screen. We already know that Steph Curry does well moving without the ball. He tires out his defenders because he's constantly in motion without the ball. All they need now is a big and another scorer, a JaVale McGee type of player, a shot blocker to protect the paint, and they're right back in the mix. And they're finals contenders. This is why the Golden State Warriors are always leap years ahead of their opponents. This is why they are far better than the competition, because they make chess moves. They outthink their opponents. Steve Kerr is a master strategist. He brought in somebody who's a impactful player, someone who impacts the game with this high basketball IQ. So while everybody is thinking, hey, we need to sign a superstar player, or we need to bring this premier player who averages 20 points per game. Listen, the Golden State Warriors right now can go out and trade for a player like Jordan Clarkson, who will bring scoring to the team. He could easily replace Jordan Poole. But with Chris Paul coming in, you got somebody who hates to lose. Somebody who's been to the playoffs multiple times. Somebody with playoff experience. Somebody who's been to the Western Conference Finals multiple times. And people are very forgetful. They fail to realize he also just went to the NBA Finals and faced the Milwaukee Bucks 2 years ago.